Hi there, Alison here with another Cab Franc du jour. Today we are in Collio and we're looking at the Russiz Superiore 2017 Cab Franc. The estate can trace its history back to 1273, but the modern story begins in 1967 when it was purchased by fourth generation grape grower Macro Felluga. Today the estate is being run by Marco's son Roberto and Roberto's daughter Ilaria. And Russiz Superiore can really be considered the crew of the family's two winemaking estates that they have in Collio. So of course we're situated here in the northeast part of Friuli-Venezia-Giulia, and we know that Cab Franc is not native to Italy, and in fact it's a French nobleman by the name of Théodore de la Tour-en-Voive who's credited with bringing French varieties to this part of Italy back in the mid-1800s. Today, Cabernet Franc represents 4% of the region's production, and it's the second most widely planted grape variety, red grape variety, I should say, after Merlot. While we know that Collio is best known for its white wines, Russiz Superiore actually has a long history of Cabernet Franc production, and I'm going to do my best to articulate the nuances of the terroir here and explain why I think that Cabernet Franc has found a nice home for itself in this part of Collio. So we're situated here in the township of Capriva del Friuli, 3 kilometers directly south of the Slovenian border in the foothills of the Julian pre-Alps. The Adriatic Sea is around 30 kilometers away to the southeast, and there's a nice combined sort of moderating influence. We're getting cool breezes from the Alps, warm breezes from the Adriatic, and it's creating a nice sort of warm, gentle microclimate for Cabernet Franc to ripen. This area as well it receives the most sunshine of all the subzones within Collio, and we know that Cabernet Franc needs a certain amount of sunshine in order to achieve full phenolic ripeness as well as to help minimize the pyrazines. The soil in this part of Collio is known locally as ponca, and ponca is a variety of flysch, and flysch is found all over the world. But the ponca here in this part of Collio can be characterized as alternating layers of sandstone and marl. It's a hard, dense soil. It has excellent drainage capabilities, which is important because Collio does receive higher amounts of rainfall during the year. But the marl also acts as a little bit of a sponge and helps with a certain degree of moisture retention. So I think that there's a nice balance here between the properties in the soil, which makes Cab Franc kind of happy. The soil is also alkaline, so it has a higher pH, which is helping to keep the acidities of Cab Franc nice and high, and it also helps to lend a certain degree of finesse to the finished wine. Now, Russiz Superiore has 6.8 hectares of Cabernet Franc vines planted. They're around 50 years of age, all planted by Massal selection, and the wine was vinified in stainless steel and aged in barrel for around 18 months. And on the nose, it has a nice sort of gentle, kind of nuanced nose with a sort of a fresh, pure fruited profile, getting sort of ripe cherry. There's a little bit of sour cherry here too, a bit of black raspberry as well. And the fruits are balanced nicely by the pyrazines, and they're coming through for me as a little bit of a cedar and kind of rosemary note. On the palate, really nice, sort of bright, mouth-watering acidity. And tannins are quite fine. They have a nice silkiness to them, but there is a just certain degree of firmness to the tannins as well. The fruits come through really beautifully. There's a lovely sort of sweet cherry note on the mid palate, and there's a really distinctive herbal profile that reminds me a little bit of nettle, which is very distinctive and different to the nose. And there's also a real spiciness to the palate as well, like cardamom and a touch of black pepper too. The combination of the acidity and the tannins gives this wine some nice tension. It's quite taut, very linear in the mouth. There is structure here, but it's also kind of refined and has a certain degree of elegance and finesse. The wine also feels very serious to me. It feels very well intentioned, like the winemaker, knew what he was doing, knew the soils, and had a certain objective when he was making this wine. Really great introduction to Russiz Superiore and Cab Franc from Collio. If you've had this wine before, let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. And of course, as always, I will be back again soon with another wine. Cheers.